Hi YouTube, back with another reaction video. We're watching Deadpool. Just gonna continue the X-Men series or whatever. So Deadpool is part of the X-Men franchise. The first Deadpool came out in 2016, so 10 years ago. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of 2016's Deadpool. This is the 8th installment of our X-Men Snicked rewatch, as we go back through all 13 of the Fox X-Men and Deadpool films ahead of Wade Wilson's MCU arrival in Deadpool and Wolverine. But this upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine film retroactively makes the 2016 Deadpool film part of a journey destined to become MCU canon, and it casts the whole events of the film in a new light. The fact that it has a helicarrier in it, and all these R-rated hits and gags never intended to be in a universe where Cap says language, although Colossus in this movie does say language. The 2016 Deadpool film changed the game for the genre, so let's break it down scene by scene for all the Easter eggs, details you never spotted, and stuff that could come back in Deadpool and Wolverine. Actually, a breakdown of 2016's Deadpool was one of the first videos I ever wrote and shot for New Rockstars 8 years ago. And yes, I think we found twice as many details for this pass. And to celebrate this X-Men Snicked rewatch, we're doing a special X-Men themed merch release, and it's really the best way to support New Rockstars. Grab one of those designs by clicking the link in the description. I am also wearing our Deadpool and Wolverine face-off shirt. That's sick. Grab, again, nerdride.shop. Okay, the 2016 Deadpool film opens with Angel of the Morning by Juice Newton. This song was Ryan Reynolds' suggestion, and director Tim Miller said it has always been the perfect contrast to the complete and utter mayhem going on in this scene. The song was in the test footage playing in the SUV when Deadpool drops in, as it does in this movie. So this freeze is really a still moment on the roll in that sequence from test footage that fans going into this movie knew pretty well. That test footage was everything. Shot in 2012 by Tim Miller with a low six-figure budget and leaked in July 2014, it was met with such an enthusiastic response that Fox greenlit the film the following September. Ryan Reynolds was a huge fan of Deadpool comics since the 90s and wanted to make a Deadpool movie in 2005, jumped at the chance to play Wade Wilson in 2009's X-Men Origins, but was disappointed with the Weapon 11 version of the character. In 2010, he produced a new script with Zombieland writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, which leaked, fans loved it, and that got them the budget for this test footage, and it's long been theorized that all these leaks were coming from Ryan Reynolds himself, and he has hinted at this.
I know that one of us did it. Like, there's four of us. There's me, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Tim Miller, the director. One of us did it.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know who did it. Yeah.
We all sort of said at the beginning, someone should leak it. Someone should leak it. So the idea was planned, but I'm 70% sure it wasn't me.
I bring up this history because now with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, we're revisiting a film series with a producer, writer, star with an unusual amount of creative control, marketing transparency, and expectation management over these films. Reynolds approaches every aspect of Deadpool like he is on borrowed time, and he views Deadpool's meta nature as Reynolds himself having a direct relationship with the fans. When he hints at something on social media, there's usually a there. Like in fall 2022, after Deadpool 3 was announced, Reynolds started joking with a Miss Minutes fan account on Twitter, and sure enough, when the trailer dropped a year and a half later, it's all about the TVA. So it's just important to see these three Deadpool films within the context of Ryan Reynolds himself. Okay, so in this opening shot, the camera pulls out of the dark hole in the car's cigarette lighter as we find ourselves in this frozen tableau of this uber-violent crash. The writer said that the visual style of the sequence is an homage to Adam Berg's award-winning carousel ad for Philips. It's an effective way to show lots of action in these little vignettes within a single millisecond, like a massively detailed comic book splash page that we can glide through in a three-dimensional way with impossible movements. Like there's this goon with a lighter burn on his forehead, which is a reference to Colin Farrell's Bullseye from the Daredevil movie. It's actually been confirmed that Jennifer Garner is going to reprise her role of Elektra in Deadpool and Wolverine. The camera pulls back from that through this tiny sip hole in the coffee lid, which is kind of a Citizen Kane through the nightclub sign or David Fincher panic room shot through the keyhole. The name on this coffee cup is Rob L, which is for Rob Liefeld, co-creator of the Deadpool character. He also has a small cameo later in the film. He actually announced this month that he is officially retiring from writing the character. Now, the opening credits that we see on screen have all been filtered through Deadpool's sarcasm, because we're not really meant to see this movie as objective reality, but really a heightened reality presented through the eyes of a subversive, self-aware narrator. So we see some douchebags film starring God's Perfect Idiot, which are obviously referencing Ryan Reynolds, a hot chick that's Marina Baccarin as Vanessa, a British villain that's on screen as Ajax/Francis, the comic relief, which could be referring to a number of people in this movie, but I'm going to assume it's either Karen Sony as a cab driver Dopinder, Dopinder or TJ Miller
Wanna
as
check them
Weasel.
out on my
There's
YouTube?
also a moody teen, obviously Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, a CGI character for Colossus, a gratuitous cameo. I'm guessing that's Stan Lee, but it might also be Hugh Jackman's magazine cover face. It also says produced by asshats, written by the real heroes here, and directed by an overpaid tool that's Tim Miller. There's a couple of visual potshots at Ryan Reynolds, the 2010 People magazine Sexiest Man Alive issue with Ryan on the cover, and a picture in the wallet of him in his Green Lantern suit. There's also an iPhone that looks like it's calling Dr. Somebody, maybe a nod to Wade's cancer treatments in this film. There's a card for Number 5 Orange, which is a real strip club in Vancouver and British Columbia. We visit the Number 5 Orange Lounge in this movie. There's also some Hello Kitty lip balm. Hello Kitty gets another visual shout out at the end of the film when Wade packs all the guns into the Hello Kitty duffel bag. But the first shot we see of Deadpool is actually of his crotch as he teabags
I like right there
and
at the
teabags
end.
us. And as we see in the trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine, he
definitely
loves to
good as
make us
fuck.
look at this image, even as a white-gloved Mickey hand gooses it. We see that Deadpool is giving the motorcyclist with a machine
Not
gun
his
a
booty
wedgie
just,
through
like,
the sunroof of this SUV as the SUV is
Just jiggled.
mid-roll, and we glide backward to this flaming drawing that says, "Hi, I'm Deadpool," with Deadpool using 2 swords to cut a guy's head off. We'll find out later this is Francis, and as the flames animate on this paper, that is what zips us into action. We cut to Deadpool right in the back of a taxi. He grabs a pamphlet for haunted Segway tours. There's another pamphlet next to it that reads, "Fun pass, great attractions, one low price. Have fun and safe day." Deadpool pockets the haunted Segway one in one of his pouches, which has got to be a nod to Rob Liefeld's character designs for Deadpool and many of the X-Force era heroes from the early 90s in Marvel Comics. They all had a ridiculous number of pouches. Deadpool
definitely
flings
juicy.
chewing gum on the camera lens. So really the first time he breaks the fourth wall in this movie, it's not by saying anything, it's just by getting something sticky on us. Deadpool climbs into the front seat, and again he shoves his crotch directly in the camera. The driver is Dopinder, a name that came from a classmate of Ryan Reynolds in Canada who got struck by lightning. Dopinder is listening to Mira Juta Hai Japani by Mukesh, and when Dopinder tells him that his love, Gita, was stolen by his cousin Bondu, Deadpool tells him to hold on tight to love, and he links pinkies with him as he does with Vanessa throughout the film. Deadpool says,
Don't make the same mistakes I did. Got it?
Yeah.
Or else the whole world tastes like Mama June after hot yoga.
yes, Mama June, aka June Shannon, is the mother of Honey Boo Boo. Much of Deadpool's expressions come from the white eyes of his mask, which were actually animated. Ryan Reynolds wore a mask with no eyepieces, but with motion tracking dots on the black patches so that they could go back in and add lightly cartoony eyes later on, which helps him control the humor of the character while he's in the mask. Because while many other things in this movie are trying to be realistic, the eyes are the window to the soul, and by making them cartoony, we kind of just accept this movie as being kind of a live-action cartoon. Deadpool says that he's been waiting 1 year, 3 weeks, 6 days, and 14 minutes to get his revenge, and he looks at his Adventure Time watch. He keeps saying that it's Christmas Day, despite Dopinder making clear that it's just a random Tuesday in April. This Christmas stuff was a holdover from a plotline in an earlier draft of the film, which had Francis being released from prison on Christmas Day. Meanwhile, Francis delivers on an arms deal. We later learn that there's actually a mutant warrior inside of this crate. A deleted scene would have shown him being released from the Raft, Marvel's super high security prison designed to detain people with powers.
Someone else's problem now. Yes, I am.
But, you know, they showed the Raft in Captain America Civil War, so that's probably why this scene was removed from Deadpool. Garrison Kane was originally planned to be the chief antagonist of this movie, but his 2 cybernetic arms were deemed too similar to the Winter Soldier in the MCU, so instead they went with Ajax, aka Francis Fanny, from the 1998 Deadpool number 14, who was an enforcer for Dr. Kilbrew's lab. Deadpool stiffs Dopinder the 2750 for cab fare and sets out with just 12 bullets. Deadpool swings his legs on the overpass while coloring a panel 1 prequel to the drawing that we saw before, reading, "Hi, I'm Francis," which would lead to Deadpool decapitating him in the other drawing, saying, "Hi, I'm Deadpool." The test footage actually opened with a shot of Deadpool on the overpass, but there the music was Gwen Stefani's Holla Back Girl. Here it's Shoop by Salt and Peppa. That song came out in 1993, the same year Deadpool's solo series debuted. Deadpool tells us,
Oh, hello. I know, right? Whose balls did I have to fondle to get my very own movie? I can't tell you, but it does rhyme with Pulverine.
and then he does Hugh Jackman's Down Under Australian accent, which sets up this running bit of his rivalry with both Hugh Jackman and Wolverine, which continues to this day and is an absolute delight. While Jackman only appears via People magazine cover in this movie, the 2016 movie already establishes that their relationship is a destined partnership. Deadpool says his catchphrase of maximum effort and drops onto the SUV. Now you'll notice there's a sign for O'Rourke Road for VFX artist
like,
Patrick Thomas O'Rourke. Later they'll pass Ditko West and Ditko East, which is a nod to comics writer and Spider-Man co-creator Steve Ditko. There's also a Fort McGinnis McGinnis and Wernick Parkway. Ed McGinnis is a Deadpool illustrator, and Paul Wernick is one of the movie's co-writers. This goon slams Deadpool's face into the seat headrest.
Rich Corinthian leather.
That's a reference to this amazing Ricardo Montalban commercial from the late 80s.
Rich leather, Corinthian leather.
And then he has his head repeatedly smashed into the radio as the stations change. Actually, that first song is the transition music from the Adam West 1960s Batman. Throughout this, the action cleverly sets up the pieces that we will see in the Juice Newton opening shot. Deadpool pushing in the cigarette lighter to warm it, the one guy hanging from the side of the car with his foot caught in the seatbelt, the motorcyclist trying to fire up at him through the sunroof during the roll, Deadpool grabbing him by the wedgie. While some of the one-liners don't really age that well in this movie, the intricately choreographed action totally does. And it's one of the things the MCU really needs right now. We freeze on Deadpool during the roll as he wonders to us, shit, did I leave the stove on? And then crash! The motorcyclist gets decapitated and a body splats on the street sign. And anybody who lived in Los Angeles knows that shit like this has actually happened on LA's freeways. The SUV rolls to a stop by Parker Boulevard, Liefeld Street, and Natchez Street, where Peter Parker, Rob Liefeld, and the other co-creator of the Deadpool character. We cut to Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, located 1407 Gray Malkin Lane, Salem Center, Westchester County, New York, according to the sign. Colossus is watching breaking news and eating grape nuts. In the X-Men films, Colossus was played by Daniel Cudmore, but Cudmore turned down the role for this movie because he didn't like the idea of just doing motion capture with another actor dubbing his lines over, but they wanted a Russian voice for the character as he is in the comics and in the animated series. According to Wired, in total it took 5 actors to bring this version of Colossus to life. Stefan Kapicic voices the character, while 6'9" actor Andrei Trikoto stood in on set and did the mocap. Meanwhile, they used another actor for Colossus's initial jawline design, and Digital Domain's Greg LaSalle did the early facial movements that they worked from, and then they brought in one final face actor for the final performance. So Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead go through the X door to the hangar with the Blackbird jet. In the comics, Negasonic Teenage Warhead was a mutant with the powers of precognition and telepathy, but her powers were changed for this film to a power set more in keeping with her name, where she just kind of explodes with energy outbursts. In order to get permission from Marvel to change her power set, director Tim Miller and screenwriters Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick had to give Marvel something in return. And Wernick said Kurt Russell's Ego, the Living Planet, in the new Guardians movie was the character that Fox swapped with Marvel to change Negasonic Teenage Warhead's powers. So if they hadn't wanted to make Negasonic Teenage Warhead explode in this movie, James Gunn never would have gotten Ego the Living Planet for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because that character was considered within the orbit of the Fantastic Four, which at the time were a Fox property. Colossus asks Negasonic when Deadpool will grow up and see the benefits of joining the X-Men, and she responds, which benefits? Matching unitards? House that blows up every few years? So yes, the mansion is destroyed in the animated series, and later this year, 2016, in X-Men Apocalypse, the expansion will blow up there too. Meanwhile, pinned behind the overturned SUV, Deadpool raises his hands. Wait! This looks like a gag that he will do in Deadpool and Wolverine as well, based on the trailer. Wait! So Deadpool does this awesome 12-shot countdown, with each number written on the bottom of the bullet casing. We get this shot through the bullet hole in Deadpool's arm, which shows that putting holes in him doesn't kill him. It's just kind of a minor inconvenience. There was actually a similar shot through a wound in Shaun of the Dead, and I like that here you can see the bloody flesh starting to contract as it heals. Deadpool gets shot right up the booty hole, and he shoots the guy with one bullet, and then wastes 2 more, saying, worth it. Which could be a reference to Reese and Wernick's script in Zombieland, you know, always do a double tap. This would be a triple tap in this case. Why does Deadpool waste these bullets? Because it shot him through the booty hole, and for him, getting pegged is kind of a sacred thing. If he had not done this triple tap, Deadpool would have had enough bullets for the 3 guys on the other side of the car. Now he has to take out all 3 with 1 bullet. And because this is so impressive, Deadpool inhales the gun smoke through the nostril region of his mask, and it blows back out of the mouth region of his mask. Deadpool stabs the final guy with his katanas, which form an X shape. And then we transition from a shot of Deadpool's butt with the bullet hole to the bedazzled butt of this bro who's insisting that he didn't order a pizza. The writers joke that this was their ass-to-ass transition, which is a super deep cut to the movie Requiem for a Dream. It also effectively serves to poke fun at the superhero genre's obsession with butts in general.
That is America's ass.
Now, this pizza box has Feige's famous written on it, an obvious shout out to Kevin Feige, but interesting how the box is upside down, maybe to obscure the name Feige, or maybe just to say the pizza place packed this pizza sloppily. Wade is wearing a B. Arthur shirt, which is a nod to the fact that in the comics, Deadpool loves B. Arthur and the Golden Girls. This is taken directly from issue number 10 of the 2008 run, where we think Deadpool is targeting the recipient of the pizza when really it's a delivery guy. We learn Jeremy here is a stalker, and Deadpool gives the stalking victim photos of Jeremy saying that he's sorry, but refuses to beat up the other girl's stepdad. dad. In fact, he later tells Weasel to give that girl back her money, because while he isn't really a hero, he only goes after the guys who deserve it. So this is in Sister Margaret's School for Wayward Girls, which is a mercenary bar. In the comics, Sister Margaret's School for Wayward Children, aka Hell House, was a former Catholic boarding house for awful schoolgirl offenders and converted into a dispatch center for mercenaries. I love that this plaque outside is pretty similar to the one for Charles's school, but it's kind of like the Bizarro version of it. Gifted youngsters
Like,
versus
so
troubled
tiny.
girls. The song playing in the bar when he walks in is Black Keys' Howlin' For You, which was like all over the place in 2015, 2016. We get a cameo from Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld as he is talking to Buck with the beard. Wade addresses him by name with a bit of disdain in his voice.
Buck Liefeld.
And Buck will also return in Deadpool and Wolverine at Wade's birthday party. We meet Weasel, played by TJ Miller. In the comics, Weasel is a tech wizard who went to the same school as Peter Parker and ends up befriending Deadpool. Wade tells him,
I was way worse than him when I was his age. I was traveling to exotic places, Baghdad, Mogadishu, Jacksonville, meeting new and exciting people, and then
Killing them. Yeah, I've seen your Instagram.
yes, this is making fun of some of the supplemental material for the X-Men Origins Wolverine trailer.
All I ever wanted was to travel to far-off, exotic places, meet new and exciting people, and then kill them.
Also, this hint at Wade's past in the Special Forces, we can assume is to try to align his backstory with the version of Wade Wilson that we saw in X-Men Origins. But remember, that Wade was active in the late 70s and early 80s, whereas this is modern day. Weasel asks him what he was doing in Jacksonville, and he responds,
that's classified.
They have wonderful TGI Fridays.
This actually comes back later in the film when Deadpool runs into an old Special Forces buddy. Jacksonville is my hometown, and it does have a wonderful TGI Fridays, like the one by the
I
AMC
used to
24
work
at Orange
there.
Park Mall. That's technically Clay County, I know, but Duval claims it. Rob Liefeld actually took the name of Deadpool from the Dirty Harry film, The Deadpool, and that gets a shout out here via this Deathpool board. There are a bunch of names on this board, so let's check them all out. The people betting are Chuck T, Dave, Jack, Weasel, Tad, Wade, John, Hank, Sergey, Sean, Nigel, Mark, Randy, Frankie, Mole, Jimbo, Reeves, Jink, Moores, and Griggs. And for the celebrities they are picking who will die next, there is Bill Cosby, Kanye West, Wade Wilson, Vladimir Putin, Booth, Jay,
Okay.
that's the guy who had just gotten into the fight with Buck, Ryan Reynolds, TJ Miller, Lindsay Lohan, Miley Cyrus, Kid Rock,
Cyrus.
Mike Tyson, Judd Nelson,
I
Lil Wayne,
never
Shia
noticed
LaBeouf,
this.
Ned Beatty,
This is
Rob
crazy.
Liefeld, Ozzy Osbourne, Amanda Bynes, and Arnold Palmer.
No.
And on the fridge glass, there is a lost sign that looks like it's just a pair of
I
slippers.
hope Amanda
Fun little
Bynes is
detail that I like.
doing
Wade meets Vanessa,
fantastic.
played by Marina Baccarin.
Honestly.
Producer Simon Kimberg said that Olivia Munn auditioned for Vanessa, and that audition actually landed her the role of Psylocke in X-Men Apocalypse. She really missed out. In the comics, Vanessa Carlyle is a mutant with the power of shapeshifting who takes up the moniker of Copycat. We actually saw her name in Stryker's mutant computer database back in X2. Here, she's just a regular human, but there was a cut line that they left in the trailer that was going to be a little nod to her shapeshifting comics persona.
I played a lot of roles. Damsel in distress ain't one of them.
They flirt by one-upping each other with these tragic backstories.
I was molested.
Me too. Uncle.
Uncles. They took turns.
The
What the
writers of
fuck?
this movie said that they got this from a Monty Python 4 Yorkshiremen sketch
That
where we were so
is
poor, we wish we could have
very
slept in the
disturbing.
bedroom. We wish we could have had corridors. We transition from Wade and Vanessa in the bar to them horizontal, but they're not having sex. It's just a fun fake out. As they're in this arcade on a date, Wade wins enough tickets to get a limited edition Voltron Defender of the Universe ring from 1984, which the clerk says makes him the protector of the planet Aris. This can also be seen as another nod to Ryan Reynolds' role in Green Lantern, since that also involved a magic ring that made him the protector of a planet. One of the toys behind the counter is a stuffed Dogpool. The real Dogpool will show up in Deadpool and Wolverine. Meanwhile, a game token from this arcade will come back in Deadpool 2. So they go home to bang. And on the wooden post, you can actually see some height marks with other women's names like Roxy. Presumably, this is for past plays who have been pinned against the same post at various heights. Leading to the calendar curl montage. Wade and Vanessa have various holiday-themed sex, going from Valentine's Day to Chinese New Year, that didn't age well, to International Women's Day, with Vanessa pegging Wade. That gets called back in the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer when he tells the TVA agent that pegging isn't new to him, but it is
I
to
haven't seen
Disney.
this first
Then there's a
one in a
great joke
minute.
where they are not having sex because it is Lent, and they've clearly given it up for the 40 days leading up to Easter. Wade is reading the autobiography of Mario Lopez. Deadpool did an April Fool's joke with Mario Lopez, killing him and revealing that the movie would be R-rated. Then they move on to Halloween, and then to Thanksgiving, and then to Christmas. Vanessa tells him that red is his color because it brings out the bloodshot of his eyes. Vanessa references Yoda on Luke, and Wade says that he loves Star Wars jokes, and she corrects him Empire. And then he references weird science by saying it's like he made her on a computer. But the real joke here is that Wade was just referring to Star Wars the franchise, but but her correction implies that she thought he was citing the 1977 film before it was retitled A New Hope, and she's like, no, not Star Wars, Empire. So he's impressed that she is that much of a nerd that she doesn't even refer to the first film as A New Hope. For her, it's just Star Wars and then Empire, which is what a certain generation of nerds calls them. So Wade proposes with a ring pop, and then he passes out, preceding a cancer diagnosis. You'll notice that Wade is wearing a Hawaiian shirt here. He wears Hawaiian shirts throughout these films. And from here, we cut back to the freeway. So when we revisit this film, it's amazing how small and confined it is. They shot it on just a $58 million budget for only 8 weeks. Most of the action is set on this freeway set as we cut back to it from Wade's backstory. It's a rather ingenious plot structure that works as a origin story for the character while also opening this film with the comic accurate version of the character that fanboys had wanted. And despite only costing $58 million, this movie had a $100 million opening and went on to make $750 million. One of the best returns on investment ever for a superhero movie. Deadpool identifies Francis as a Romanian motorcyclist. He trips him up, and he references Regina, Saskatchewan as he punts his head because, you know, Ryan Reynolds, Canada, that's his whole thing. And then he pins him to the barrier, stabbing the katana through the concrete, and he reveals his own face to him.
Well, hello, gorgeous.
Yeah, like I got bit by a radioactive Shar-Pei.
This is a reference to the 2004 comic where Deadpool says that he looks like, quote, Ryan Reynolds crossed with a Shar-Pei. Of course Ryan Reynolds wanted to make a Deadpool movie when they made that joke. Colossus appears.
I think we can all agree that shit just went sideways in the most colossal way. Well, maybe not the most.
Ah, yes, a Weapon 11 X-Men Origins action figure. Wade tells Vanessa that this is my most prized possession, but he's actually talking about his Wham! Make It Big album. He also shows off his Bernadette Peters change purse. Bernadette Peters, an amazing actress and Broadway singer, and Wade's love of musical theater is on further display with a Rent t-shirt he wears. Rent, of course, is a show about characters dealing with AIDS, and you can imagine Wade probably just feels kinship dealing with his own terminal illness. And also a little clue to us. The musical theater may be another pipeline to get cast into Deadpool 3, because Hugh Jackman was, before he was cast as Wolverine, a musical theater star. Wade shows Weasel pamphlets for countries that Vanessa wants him to go for treatment. Actually, in a deleted sequence, Wade would have gone to Guadalajara and messed up a con artist scamming cancer patients out of money.
Smells like chicken. You looking for this?
There's actually a similar scene in Man on the Moon when Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman sees a healer take chicken parts out of a bucket and pass it off as cancer that was removed from his body. The business card Weasel hands Wade has the phone number 555-0199 on it. This is a phone number used in a ton of TV shows and movies like Rick and Morty, Spider-Man 3, Monsters Inc., American Beauty, Community, and that's because phone numbers through 555-0199 are officially designated for use in Hollywood productions. So Wade meets the recruiter, played by the amazing Jed Hess from Galaxy Quest. Wade refers to him a few times throughout the film as Agent Smith from The Matrix. Deadpool actually bumped The Matrix Reloaded out of its top spot for highest grossing R-rated film of all time when it was released. So the recruiter gives Wade the Weapons Plus series pitch, and that night he freaks out over his future and he tells Vanessa that he was having the Liam Neeson Taken nightmare again. He says that Neeson made 3 of those movies.
At some point you have to wonder if he's just a bad parent.
It's a great joke, but you know, now Ryan Reynolds is gonna have made 3 Deadpool movies. At some point you have to wonder if he just needs attention. I think he would be the first person to say that. So we cut back to the freeway, meaning this whole cancer subplot was just what was flashing through Wade's eyes when Colossus threw him sideways away from finally being able to kill Francis. Deadpool drops meta jokes about superhero cinema.
Let's pro-con this superhero thing. Pro. Lucrative film deals, both origin stories and larger ensemble team movies.
Let us go talk to the professor.
McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
It's just so funny to hear him talk about these characters when he's about to show up in a movie with them, and he's about to join a larger ensemble team movie. He refers to Charles Xavier as a creepy, bald, Heaven's Gate looking mother, referring to the leader of the suicidal Heaven's Gate cult. And it's just interesting to refer to Charles Xavier that way since X-Men the Animated Series ended with Charles leaving planet Earth and going to another planet for a special medical treatment. Now there was an extended scene that would have showed Deadpool laying into Colossus and Negasonic even more.
So what? You're like, his sidekick?
No, trainee.
Oh, like in a restaurant. Or the waiter brings around the trainee and he stammers out the soup of the day. Minestrone, clam chowder.
Consider doubling your daily dose.
Gazpacho.
But Deadpool punches Colossus, breaking every bone in his hand and one of his legs. He claims, "Oh, Canada," which of course is the Canadian national anthem. He also references RoboCop by saying, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." To get out of Colossus's cuffs, he cuts his hand off, referencing both the hand cutting off film of 127 Hours and the coming of age period book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which I think grossly is just referring to the fact that he sprays Colossus's face with his blood. Ugh. As Deadpool jumps jumps from the bridge, he's got in the bed of a passing garbage truck. There are actually a ton of shows and movies that have the same move in it, from Buffy to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, but the garbage around him includes some broken eggs that connect to the next part of his anecdote, and Francis's exchange about how you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. So we are back in Weapons Plus. Now this procedure is never named Weapons Plus in this movie, but it is connected to that in the comics, and in our breakdown of X-Men Origins, we went into a lot of the people who underwent this procedure. In the comics, Captain America was Weapon 1, Brute Force was Weapon 2, which was the collection of augmented animals including a squirrel with Wolverine claws. Weapon 3 was Harry Pizer, aka Skinless Man. Weapon 4 was Man-Thing, who we saw in Werewolf by Night. Weapon 5 is Project Venom. Weapon 6 is Luke Cage. Weapon 7 is Frank Simpson, aka Nuke. Weapons 8 and 9 were projects that created sleeper assassins. Weapon X was Wolverine, and in Origins, Deadpool was Weapon 11. There were some comments on a past breakdown of people asking for clarification between Weapons Plus and Weapon X. Weapons Plus is the procedure itself in the operation. Weapon X is just Wolverine's test subject designation, X or 10. Many people believe that the serum used on Wade is derived from Wolverine's DNA, because in the comics, Wade gets his powers from an experiment involving a sample of Wolverine's blood, and that's why he has regenerative abilities as Wolverine does. The serum does have a couple drops of blood in it, and the Apocalypse post-credit scene involved men who worked for Mr. Sinister, Nathaniel Essex, picking up a vial containing Wolverine's blood. Before the procedure, Wade tells the recruiter,
"And please don't make the super suit green. Or animated."
Which is another reference to Green Lantern. He passes another patient with spiny things sticking out of her back. This is Marrow, a mutant whose bones grow out of her skin. She can pull them out and throw them like projectiles. We saw a character with similar abilities, Spike, in Magneto's camp in X-Men The Last Stand. Gina Carano plays Angel Dust. In the comics, Angel Dust was a natural-born mutant with the ability to amp up her adrenaline levels to increase her strength. Here, she got her abilities from the Weapons Plus procedure. Wade notices the match in her mouth and asks if she's a big Stallone fan. In the movie Cobra, Stallone always had a match sticking out of his mouth. Ajax says that he also went through this procedure, but it left him with the inability to feel pain. Wade asks Ajax,
"Is Ajax your actual name? Because it sounds suspiciously made up. What is it really? Kevin? Bruce? Scott? Mitch? The Rickster? Is it Basil Fawlty?"
These could be references to Kevin Feige, Bruce Banner, Scott Summers, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Mitch Carson. The Rickster was actually a nickname of the American photographer and host of the public access TV show Rappin' with the Rickster. Basil Fawlty was the name of John Cleese's character in the awesome British sitcom Fawlty Towers. The Cordettes Mr. Sandman plays as they torture Wade to trigger his mutation.
If you're lucky, your mutant genes will activate and manifest in a spectacular fashion until you finally mutate or die.
The wording here implies that Wade had mutant genes that were dormant, and this process was designed to induce trauma to wake up those genes, like the traumatic trigger points of all the X-Men in the past films. But in the comics, Wade Wilson was not a mutant, he was a mutate, where, like Spider-Man, his powers come from some external source, as opposed to any kind of genetic condition. Now, during a reprieve, Deadpool talks to Cunningham, another patient. In the comics, this is Worm, and he has a much larger role, because it is Worm who comes up with the name Deadpool, from the death pool that he and Wade form in the lab. In the comics, Wade snaps Worm's neck to end his suffering from Ajax torturing him, and that is why we get this meaningful look between Wade and Worm as the lab burns down later. But here, Wade finds out that Ajax's real name is Francis from his laundry tag, and Francis says,
"Why don't you do us all a favor and shut the up? Or I'll sew your pretty mouth shut."
Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yes, another reference to Deadpool's much maligned look in X-Men Origins. He references this again later.
"Sorry, Francis. My lips are sealed."
So they lower the oxygen level for Wade until he feels like he is suffocating, which is what triggers the mutation. His body attacks the cancer cells as fast as they can form, scarring him horribly. So just to clarify this, it is suggested in this movie that Wade's mutation is triggered from a mix of this serum that possibly contains Wolverine's DNA and suffocation. But really, Deadpool's existence is implied to be some kind of cosmic accident in which he is unhinged from reality in a specific way to make him crazy, make him believe that he's a comic book character who can talk to the reader. I think Deadpool and Wolverine might finally get to the bottom of how his powers work in the movie universe and why he has this relationship with reality that he has and how it really comes from Wolverine. Because I believe that Deadpool will be identified as a Nexus being, a glitch in the TVA's Matrix. When Wade transforms, he says, "This is a horror movie," which is a reference to Frankenstein, which Wade has several parallels to. Later, Weasel will compare him to Freddy Krueger and tell him that he should star in horror movies. Wade headbutts Angel Dust and grabs her matchstick, which must be a strike anywhere match, since safety matches you definitely cannot light just using your finger. He uses this match to blow up the place. Francis comes in to try to put out the fire, leading to this disgusting fight. Francis skewers Wade through a piece of rebar, pins him to the ground, and then just bends it at the top so Wade cannot just pull it out or pull himself out of it. Later on the bridge, Deadpool skewers Francis through a sword, but Francis pulls it out of himself and escapes. Wade's head emerging from the ash is just kind of reminiscent of the X-Men Origins scene where the Deadpool head in the wreckage that looks to camera and says, "Shh." It's so gross. So Wade now walks the earth lonely like Frankenstein, watching Vanessa from a distance, making him a bit of a stalker, just as he punished Jeremy for being in the earlier scene. He turns and walks out in the street. Actually, a deleted scene would have shown him getting hit by a bus and then waking up in a body bag in the morgue. So after coming up with a game plan with Weasel, Wade says this about Francis.
Then put a bullet in his skull and the brain hole.
An homage to this scene from Grosse Point Blank.
Like I'm gonna put a bullet hole in your forehead and I'm gonna the brain hole.
Now, one thing from American comedy films from this era was a tendency to just let the camera roll on actors as they improvise, which they definitely did with T.J. Miller here, who had a background in improv.
You look like an avocado. Had sex with an older, more disgusting avocado. Yeah, because you look like Freddy Krueger face topographical map of Utah. Your face is the stuff of nightmares.
Like a testicle with teeth.
I'm not going to shame anyone for finding this funny. Back in 2016, I definitely laughed at a lot of this, but there is a higher risk of ad-libs like this just not aging all that well and kind of getting tiresome when we rewatch these movies. Actually, before I was a YouTuber, I used to write these stuffy comedy analysis think pieces, and a theory that I had was that this style of comedy filmmaking surged in popularity with directors like Judd Apatow and Adam McKay, whose movies like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Anchorman are filled with these outtakes of actors going on and on improvising alternate takes. But you just don't see movies like that anymore. Why is that? Well, there's a few reasons. One is that it makes it a little tricky to credit who actually wrote these movies, and unless the actors are all really close with each other, the WGA arbitration process can just get kind of tricky. But deeper than that, I believe around the nexus point in our history of 2016, these directors just started to get serious. Like Adam McKay shifted his career into making films like The Big Short and Vice and Don't Look Up. Judd Apatow began producing other comedians' semi-serious projects like The Big Sick and The King of Staten Island. Other comedy directors went into superhero movies that were kind of funny but mostly serious, like the Russo brothers with their Marvel movies, Todd Phillips with Joker, Peyton Reed with the Ant-Man movies, Taika Waititi with the Thor movies. Like, think about it. When was the last time you saw a big studio live-action comedy movie? One that wasn't also a superhero movie or an action movie or a big franchise movie? I think the reason is both these directors just kind of getting sick of making jokes all the time, and audiences losing their senses of humor. Like, we're just such a segmented culture now that we don't all agree on what is funny anymore and what is offensive. So now I just think it's pretty interesting to see a Deadpool franchise return when the first film pitched itself as this older era improv ad-libby action comedy, now landing in 2024. Now, Ryan Reynolds has a writing credit on the third movie script, which some believe might have been the result of his ad-libbing on set to get away with punch-ups while they shot in May and June during the writer's strike. But will Deadpool's pegging jokes landing flat in the MCU be part of this third film's comedic premise? Like, it'd be kind of funny to have a guy from a different world where things used to be funny come into a universe where people like Paradox are like,
so
actually,
good.
we don't find that funny. At the end of the day, I think we are all just more excited to see well-choreographed stunts and action and long overdue commentary on superhero movie franchise world building and where they've gone wrong. So in the scene, they test out superhero names like Scaredevil, Captain Deadpool, Mr. Never Die, and Wade the Wisecracker before settling on Deadpool. Captain Deadpool? No, just Deadpool. Weasel says that Deadpool sounds like a fucking franchise, and Wade sews a superhero uniform set to the Deadpool rap by Team Headkick. A version of this music actually appeared in the 2013 Deadpool video game, but they wrote a new version for this film. This sequence is the first time that Deadpool breaks the fourth wall chronologically in his life.
This shit's gonna have nuts in it.
Now, we could justify this as a form of insanity, as the comics do, but I do think there is something about his transition into Deadpool and his linkage to Wolverine that makes him kind of this cosmic glitch, the way She-Hulk and Wanda Maximoff are. I actually recently explored this in another video. During this montage, you can actually see Francis wearing a crown of dicks on the wall. Wade tries out a white costume, but then gets shot and bleeds all over it, calling back the moment on the bridge earlier in the film, but later in the narrative where he asks, "Do you know why I wear red?" That's so that bad guys can't see me bleed. It's actually Blind Al, played by Leslie Uggams, who suggests that he wear red. I love that she knows he's scrubbing out blood just from the smell, and she assumes that he hadn't been wearing red before by just the sound of his type-in, scrubbing. So Wade now sews a red uniform and goes into a fight, which is reminiscent of the first Spider-Man movie when he donned his homemade Spider-Man costume and went to a fight. But throughout all this, Wade asks, "Where's Francis?" He never gets an answer, and it might be because all these guys don't know who Francis is. They just know him as Ajax, not Francis. If you just asked where's Ajax, I'm sure some of them could have been like, "Oh, he's over there." Also, during this sequence, you'll notice Deadpool goes to an underground boxing gym, and one of the fighters has this mutant dampening collar, like the ones we see Ajax and Angel Dust putting on the Weapons Plus super soldiers that they give to the arms dealers. So I guess one of them got out or is being trained here. Again, if you just asked this person where's Ajax, he probably could have skipped a lot of steps. But we wouldn't have had all this fun stuff, like Wade running down a guy with a Zamboni, which is a reference to the steamroller scene in A Fish Called Wanda. Pretty sure Ryan Reynolds is secretly obsessed with John Cleese. When he catches up to the recruiter, he says, "Nice to see you, Jared." I'll take a foot long. This is one of the many pedophile jokes that he makes about this guy, usually referring to Jared from Subway. When hurting the recruiter, Wade turns the camera away from them, and the recruiter also looks directly into camera. So, like Hulk with She-Hulk, other characters in these realities of these Nexus beings can sense what they are doing. They just kind of find it confusing. I wonder if seeing the code of the Matrix this way is kind of a mind virus, and that's why the TVA is so worried about it. Deadpool calls for a cab, and Dopinder picks him up, bringing us back to where we started. You'll notice on top of this cab is an ad for bail bonds asking, need a hero? And from here, Deadpool fast forwards too far to a shot of him tugging one out to his stuffed unicorn, which we see him going off to do after he chats with Blind Al. Wade wraps a pink towel around his hand in the alley, suggesting that he might have bled into this towel before when coming home. Inside, Blind Al listens to Hit the Road Jack by Ray Charles, who is a blind singer. I also like the random detail that Al is always wearing shirts with animals on them when we see her. There's a wolf in the laundromat scene and an adorable kitten when Wade is caressing her face with his little hand. When Al tells Wade that looks aren't everything, he says,
Think Ryan Reynolds got this far on his superior acting method?
And a little later, Weasel tells Francis and Angel Dust to have fun at your midnight showing of Blade 2, which would be another franchise that Ryan Reynolds had a role in. He played Hannibal King in Blade Trinity. At the number 5 Orange Club, we get the obligatory and much missed these days Stan Lee cameo.
Coming onto our stage right now. Give it up for Chastity.
I love that Stan Lee says this with an actual topless woman in the foreground. And when we see Wade in the bathroom, there would have been a deleted version of the scene around here that would have had Nathan Fillion as the club's bathroom attendant.
I'm on maximum effort. Towel for you. I hope you're a bathroom attendant and not a patron.
Weasel tells Wade that Vanessa's out back.
Go get her, Tiger.
This is another Spider-Man nod. It's a final nod of Spider-Man 2, and Deadpool will say this line later in the movie to Negasonic.
Go get her, Tiger.
But instead of Wade in the alley, she runs into Francis and gets kidnapped. So Wade, Weasel, and Blind Al gather all the guns! And he also tosses in Hugh Jackman's 2008 People Magazine Sexiest Man Alive issue in that Hello Kitty gun bag. We will see why he needs this later. And Wade tells Blind Al,
Hey, careful with that Ronnie Millsap.
Yes, Ronnie Millsap, another blind musician. Now, the film's creators snuck in the design of a SHIELD helicarrier as a scrapyard vessel that they fight on. They just weren't able to identify it as such clearly, and they just had to dismantle it enough. But yeah, that is a SHIELD helicarrier, my friends. It's one detail that could totally come back in Deadpool and Wolverine, because that trailer does have a pruned helicarrier in that void. Deadpool jogs up to the X-Mansion where he calls Negasonic Teenage Warhead Ripley from Alien 3, and he makes a meta comment about the lack of X-Men in this movie.
It's a big house. It's funny that I only ever see 2 of you. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford another X-Man.
So the 3 of them cram into Dopinder's taxi. I love how Dopinder, when Deadpool calls later, there is a Deadpool phone case and a Deadpool background on the phone. When Deadpool leaves the taxi this time, you can see the pink bag with the guns left behind in the passenger seat, setting up the reveal minutes later when he remembers that he left the bag behind again. He steps out and says, time to make some chimichangas, which is one of Deadpool's favorite foods in comics. They walk in slow motion, set to DMX's X gonna give it to ya, because Deadpool now is taking one step closer to being an X-Man. Francis sends some armed soldiers at them and asks,
Wade Wilson! What's my name?
Ooh, I'm a spell it out for you.
And indeed, Wade Wilson will spell it out by the end of all this. Negasonic wears black and yellow colors that are consistent with the comic and animated series look of the X-Men. Deadpool calls out the impractical and hard on the knees superhero landing that Angel Dust does, and I just feel like after this movie came out, no one could look at superhero landings the same way ever again. It's pretty similar to Yelena Belova calling out the Black Widow hair flip pose. Deadpool recognizes Bob among Francis's henchmen, which is a reference to Hydra Bob, his sidekick in the comics. Wade spells out Francis's name in the goon body parts, and he uses one of the bodies to moon him, adding insult to injury. The decapitated guy spelling out the I has his butt on full display. Deadpool gets stabbed in the side of the head and starts hallucinating as Chicago's "You're the Inspiration" is playing. Colossus tries to convince Deadpool not to kill Francis with this 4 to 5 moments to be a hero speech, and we know that it's not going to happen. And notice how both times Colossus pukes here and earlier on the bridge. The puke is silver. Tim Miller reasoned that when Colossus changes into his metallic form, the contents of his stomach would probably change into metal too. So Wade lifts his mask to finally reveal himself to Vanessa, and he's wearing Hugh Jackman's Sexiest Man Alive cover over his face. So the entire time he was fighting in the scene, he had just magazine paper separating him and his mask. But this would create a bit of a paradox for Deadpool and Wolverine, as Deadpool knows Hugh Jackman as an actor, but also lives in a reality where Hugh Jackman is playing the Wolverine character. We'll talk about that more in the Danger Room section. But Deadpool says to Colossus, "Tell Beast to stop shitting on my lawn," a joke that was originally supposed to lead to a cutaway with Nicholas Hoult as Beast taking a dump on Deadpool's front lawn and then running away, but they couldn't schedule time for Holt to come and shoot it. The writers had said that a much earlier draft of the script would have ended with an Amy Winehouse gag in which Amy Winehouse was on the Deathpool board, and throughout the movie she would have had recurring near-death experiences until she finally died at the end, but Winehouse tragically passed away in July 2011. That's how early that script draft was. Deadpool sends it off to the credits, and Wade refers to himself as your friendly neighborhood pool man. One more Spider-Man nod for the road. The little animated Deadpool wreaking havoc over the end credits also does a Spider-Man upside down web move before the webbing snaps and he crashes down. Some of the animated creatures during Wade's knife in the side of the head hallucination moment also come back here. And then a post-credit scene where we get an awesome homage to the end credit scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of the earliest movie post-credit scenes in cinema history. But here Deadpool, wearing the same bathrobe, asks the audience if they are waiting for Sam Jackson to show up, referring to the Iron Man post-credit scene. And then he also teases the next movie that's going to feature Cable and time travel. And that is what we got. Cable would be played by Thanos actor Josh Brolin, and then Deadpool, as he walks out, leaves with a chicka chicka, which is from Yellow's song Oh Yeah, which featured heavily throughout the Ferris Bueller film. So next week I will be breaking down the other X-Men movie to come out in 2016, X-Men Apocalypse. But let's end in our
Apocalypse. Yep, so X-Men Apocalypse is next. Probably watch that sometime this week. I need to start watching